Hey, what's up, Team Eddie Gray? Back at it again. It is midnight, usually not up that late, but today is the giveaway. So if you would like one of two plugins, we're giving away MAAT's 2BC multiCORR, which we're going to go over today. This is a multi-band correlation meter, really great for mastering, really great for making sure things are in phase. We're also giving away an instance of MAAT Go's plugin, which is really great for checking your mixes in mono, for checking the differential or the sides, the balance. So if you are interested in getting one of these plugins, watch till the very end and we will give you details. Now, before we start, most of the people that are arriving to this channel, they simply haven't subscribed yet. So I'm going to ask you to go ahead and do that. And if you do like the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Now, I try to post as much content as I can, but sometimes I have too many gigs, too many mixing gigs, production gigs. And so I want to make sure that you know that I do very much appreciate you. And so when I can, we're going to make sure that we have giveaways, that we answer all of your questions. And I wanted to thank all of the new members that are part of the channel. We've got courses, exclusive content that's a part of this channel. And if you want to support us, do me a big favor. Go inside of the links, check in the description, and there's various ways that you can support what we do here. But let's go ahead and check out MAAT's multiCORR. What is a multi-band correlation meter? Well, if you saw my last video on the importance of a correlation meter, you know that it can affect a lot of things: loudness, phase. You want to make sure that the coherence of your song is completely intact. Now, something I didn't do in that video was warn you about some of the dangers in terms of using correlation meters. They are good in one sense and bad in another. They're great because they tell you more about your song, but the problem is if you start getting too fancy with stereo widening imagers, it can completely affect your song and have a negative impact. The other thing to talk about here is that a correlation meter is really just one way to look at correlation. And in some ways, it's very limited insofar as they are based on energy. If we look at something like this multi-band correlation meter, we have 32 bands where we can see where exactly we are out of correlation, if we are in fact out of correlation. So this plugin here provides us a basic correlation meter up on top. And so let's go ahead and take a look at that. And so you can see we're swaying over to the left a bit. And if this was just a regular correlation meter, then most of us would think that would be okay. But in this case, we can see clearly that there's a lot of problem areas, and we're going to fix those right now. Now, at the very bottom of the plugin, we've got some great stereo tools, very similar to MAAT Go here. We have the ability to flip the channels. We can isolate just the left channel. For example, right now, I'm going to isolate the right channel, and I have a hi-hat playing on the left channel. And so you'll be able to fact check and make sure that you're getting the mix precisely the way you want it. Check this out. Right, so this tells me with certainty that that hi-hat is in fact mostly playing on that left channel. All right, good. And you're not going to hear this just on one speaker, by the way. It's going to play out of both. So right above that, we have a balance meter, which is really good to make sure that your song isn't kind of standing on one leg, if you will. I purposefully messed up and I have it tilting to one side, as you can see here. And so there's little things that you can do to try and get your song to kind of meet somewhere in the middle. It's not going to be perfect ever, but at least you can get somewhere in the ballpark. So let's go back to the correlation meter. This is telling us information about how the left and the right channel are relating to one another. And in some ways you want them to match, but if they match too much, then everything will be in mono. And if they don't match at all, then everything will be completely out to the side and it won't make any sense. Let me collapse this to mono so you see what I mean. Okay, so on the one hand, you would think that's a good sign, but again, it's not, because that's not how stereo recordings work. And this also definitely applies for those of you that record in stereo, but on this channel, we're mostly in the box. So something to look at here is if I click on differential, now there's nothing matching between the left and the right speaker. A symbiosis of both is really what we're looking for. That harmony between some elements being in mono, some elements being out to the side, and then having your music pump that way. So because normal correlation meters don't read out specific frequency problems, we're going to need a tool of this caliber. And the way you want to use it is you want to use it in conjunction with the mono solo band here. Of course, you could use something else as well. And so we're going to collapse this to mono, and I want you to listen to the melody that is playing here. It's basically going to just disappear. Check it out. Collapsing to mono. Now notice what we are hearing, things that you would expect. The bass, some of the percussion, but we lose the melody altogether. And so I reckon that I'm going to look at the information here and I'm going to try and fix specifically that. And when we do that, melody will fold back into the picture. So let's take a look. So essentially everything above 315 hertz seems to be completely out. So I'm going to hit the key command V, and I'm going to pull up the culprit, which is this incredible plugin by one of my favorite companies, Yum Audio. While it's doing a lot by way of making this very interesting, it's causing some harm as well, right? So if I bypass Flux Machine, it sounds like this. So yeah, we definitely want the character of this amazing plugin, but it's just too out there. So what can we do here to hone in on the issue? Let's go ahead and open up that GUI and let's see if we can bring down the width a bit. So I'm going to take this here and we'll drop this down to, let's say, 120. And I want to see what kind of effect this has on the track. Okay, so you can see that that now is raising up. Maybe I'll back off of the flutter a bit, jitter a bit, and hopefully this gives us a little bit more of what we're looking for. Let's see. All right, so once we bring everything back into the mix, let's see what we got. Now, another check that you can do here is muting the element that's in question and seeing what everything looks like from that vantage point. All right, so we can see clearly here that this is causing most of the problems. And so let's look at the bus, the sends. Both of these are reverbs. Maybe I'll get rid of one of those reverbs and see if we can bring this down just a little bit further. Okay, I think we got it now. Let's check this out. Again, I'm going to collapse to mono, and this time, this will not go away. It will still be in the presence of the mix. Now, this is important because several people are going to listen to your song with phones, with beat-up speakers, you know, at a party where one speaker is like that way and one speaker is that way. And so you want to make sure that this translation is pristine and perfect. Let's take a listen. Now that's a very big difference from what we had before. And remember, if we were using a normal correlation meter, this simply would not have been possible. You couldn't even conceive of any problems at that point because the tool just simply wasn't sophisticated enough at that juncture. Now, if I were you, I would always keep my bass in the green up to like 200 hertz. I think that's kind of like a hard and fast rule when it comes to the multi-band correlation meter. All right, so that being said, let's check the bass and let's make sure that everything under 200 hertz is right where it needs to be. Yeah, so with the exception of a couple of times that it dips over, it seems to be pretty solid. Now, one thing to say right now, before I start getting all these comments, it's going to be in the red sometimes. That's just how this game is played. So reverb tails are definitely very conducive to being in the red. So if you're in the red, it's not that big of a deal. You just want to try and do a couple of things to make sure that your song, number one, is translating like I showed you with the melody. You want to make sure that your bass is in check. A couple of other things to look at here. So one of the ways to use this is to simply solo elements and check the balance. You want to make sure that things are not too far off if your intention is to have them meet right in the middle. So in the case of these drums, they are in stereo, but I definitely want them to be in the middle. So let's think wide mono, right? So if I check the balance here, you want to make sure I'm not tipping over to one side. So if it moves too far left, it'll be in blue. And if it moves too far right, it'll be in orange. So that's a pretty good balance. Let's go ahead and check the hi-hat. All right, so clearly it's saying, hey, you're completely kind of over to one side, not balanced. And so, of course, that could be good for your song. But in this case, we're going to go ahead and fix that. So let's move this over here and let's pan this over so we can try and get a bit of better balance here. Now, a ton of professional mixers will actually set their source in mono and they will actually pan while they are mixing in mono. Now, that may sound completely contradictory, but what the emphasis here and the mentality is that if it finds a space in mono, then certainly it's probably going to translate. And so we're going to do that now. Okay, so that's pretty good. I can see that's working. My balance is a lot better because of it. So let's open back up to stereo. So that's a really good exercise to do. Just solo your kicks, solo your snares, make sure that everything is exactly where you want it to be. So for me, this hi-hat is still too loud in terms of amplitude. So another thing that you can do here is solo the channels and just see how is this translating, and am I fooling myself? Like, is something just too loud? So again, I'll solo the left channel. We're going to hear that hi-hat, and it probably is going to just be peaking out a bit too much. Check it out. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and bring the volume down. Okay, so now I get out of the left solo band, and now take a listen to this. This might give you a bit more of an objective bias when it comes to your mixing. It was a lot louder before that, and sometimes we need this. I don't know, maybe you've had a long day, maybe you've been mixing for like 8 to 12 hours, and you just need a bit of objectivity. So that's a great way to achieve that. Something else to look at is the difference, and you definitely don't want a lot of low-end information here. And so we're going to go ahead and click on that and see how this sits. So there is some side low information. And so one of the things that you can do is simply insert an EQ on the master and make sure that you're in side mode and just clean up a little bit. It's not necessarily a must for every song, but it's probably not a bad idea. Now I'll use a linear phase EQ just to make sure it's the cleanest that it can be. And I'll bring this up to, let's say, 50 hertz. So let's see what that sounds like now. So that did a lot by way of cleaning up the low end. Here's before. So a lot tighter. So these are all the little things that ultimately add up and make a huge difference. So anyway, I can't emphasize it enough. This tool is extremely important. Let's say you're working and you're probably somewhere in the post-production phase and you're ready to start mastering, and you think, I'm going to insert a stereo widening tool. And let's say you bring it up to like 150 and you think this sounds awesome. Unless you have a tool of this nature, you won't be able to see some of the mistakes that are about to show themselves. Now check this out. You see, that's a problem. So I'm going to bring this down to, let's say, something a little bit more conservative, like 120. And that pretty much fixed it. Another thing that there's still some problems in like 400 to 700, somewhere in there. So you can try playing with the crossover frequency so that everything, let's say, below 500 stays in mono. So this may also be helpful. I personally really like setting up my crossover around 200, but that's another way to get a bit more tightness and coherence in your track. So at the end of the day, what have we learned here? This is really important, especially with all the new smart speakers and all the new stuff that's going on with virtualization. Very important to know what is playing out of your speakers. Number two, not everything that's read is bad. Some things are going to be good, and sometimes you're just going to have to cut your losses. Like when we first started, if you were really digging the width of that specific synth and you wanted to live with that, that would be an artistic choice that you would have to understand. And so long as you're comfortable with that, then that's really all that matters, because it is your music after all. So if you're in the red, all it means is that you have signals on the left channel that would cancel out with the right if you collapse to mono. And again, that's not always a big deal because you're not really ever in the red all the way. It's always just kind of a little bit. But I will tell you, there's a lot of potential here, and there's a lot that can help you with making your songs cleaner, louder, and way, way more powerful and impactful. So if you want this plugin or MAAT, here's how you get it. I want you to go to their website and I want you to subscribe to the newsletter. And all you have to do is email us proof over at support@hfmusicacademy.com. Check out the liner notes and you can get all the details. And once you do that, we're going to ask you for information. We'll send you some codes, and that's that. This is only going to go out to a couple of select winners. So you're going to leave a comment and you're going to go over to their website. So check out the link in the description. And other than that, thank you so much for watching. Again, give it a thumbs up. We appreciate you guys so much, and we're looking forward to many, many more wins. This is Eddie Gray signing off. Peace be with you. I'll see you later. Bye.